Hi again. It is Wednesday. It's January 13th, and I am going to kind of extend our math lesson from yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about three different vocabulary words and phrases in math and geometry, and they were point, line, and line segment. And several of you did take screenshots of your work and send them to me yesterday. So I was pleased to see some of your work. If you haven't done that yet, you can go back to yesterday's lesson, Tuesdays, and do that. But I've got Draw Island pulled up again because I'm going to show you some two more examples of some words that we're going to learn in math today. So I'm going to go back to my line tool. Yesterday we learned that a line is a straight piece that goes on forever in both directions. And we put arrowheads at the ends to signify that. Okay, today, the first thing I'm going to do is to teach you what we call a ray, R-A-Y, okay? Now, I want you to think about the sun for a minute. And the sun, obviously, is, what keeps our earth heated and warm. But when we think about a ray from the sun, a ray is kind of like a line that extends downward towards Earth, starting at the sun and going to the earth in one direction. Well, that's what a ray is in geometry. So in geometry, a ray travels forever in just one direction. So I'm going to put arrowheads at the end of one of the ends, and the other end is a starting. Think about the sun. The sun is kind of like a point. I'm going to put a point at the other end. And there's my ray. So a ray travels forever in one direction. Okay, there it is. It has an arrowhead at one end and a point at the other. Okay, I'm also going to name that point, kind of like what we did yesterday. I had a little trouble with the text tool, so I'm just going to label it with my pencil. Okay, I would call that point A. Now, with a ray must have 2 points that sit on it. Okay, the first one is at one of the ends. The second one is somewhere on the ray itself. Okay, so I'm going to label this, I would label this point B. Okay, and then I would call this ray A, B. Okay. Now, yesterday when we talked about lines and line segments, I said that you can, it could be like A, B or B, A for both of those. It doesn't matter which order. However, when we're talking about a ray, we need to start, when we're discussing its name, we start at the first point where the ray begins. So this ray is called ray A, B, but I cannot call it ray B, A because it doesn't go in that direction. So I'm only naming that ray the direction that it goes. Okay. Another thing about a ray is, the ray doesn't have to be straight horizontal like this. I can make a ray that goes this way diagonally and put, the arrowhead on one end. I can make a ray that goes this way. Okay, but again, a ray goes forever, in one direction. And I need to have what we call this is the end point. Should have mentioned that. The end point starts at the end, but then I also need to have at least one other point that lives on that ray itself. Okay, this one would kind of look like this. Okay, that point there. Now, since this ray kind of goes off to the left here, This is my end point. This is my starting point. So whatever point is here, whatever its name is, let's say this is point C. Oops, I forgot to change it to my pencil tool. So this would be ray C, and let's call this point D. Okay. But again, I have to start with the end point. That's the first part of its name. I have to start there. I cannot call this ray DC. It has to be CD, even though the ray travels this direction. I'm going to start at the end point and name it that way. Okay, so those are all different examples of rays. I know I didn't label this one. I could call this ray H J. Again, I don't have to use letters that are in order in the alphabet. I can kind of choose. A lot of times they are A, B, C, D, E, F, that kind of, in order, but it's not required. Okay, so I'm going to, so again, that's called a ray, and I'll show it to you on my board. It's kind of like a line, but it's a straight path that travels forever in one direction instead of two. It just goes one direction. It can go up, it can go down, it can go across, it can go to this way, it can go in any direction. Okay, I'm going to delete my screen. And the second thing I'm going to mention today is what we call an angle. Okay, angle, not angel, but an angle. And an angle, I wanted to teach you a ray first, because an angle is made of two rays. So I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to draw a ray first. We'll put the arrow at the end. Okay, and then I'll put my point at the end of my ray. Okay, now to make an angle, angles are two rays that are connected and they share the same endpoint, kind of like that. Think about hands on a clock, okay? It's kind of like we've got this ray and this ray. They're connected and they're attached and they share that same endpoint, okay? So what I would do then, I would also need to put another point on this ray and another point on this ray, okay? Now I have what's called an angle, and angles can be all kinds of different sizes. I made a simple angle. Now, when I name this angle, I'm going to name each point, okay? So let's say this is point, whoops, go back to my pencil tool. Let's say this is point B, and let's say this is point A, and let's say this is point C. Okay, kind of sloppy writing, but you get the idea. Okay, so when I have my angle and I've labeled the points, now we talked about how to name lines and segments and rays. An angle's a little bit different. Here's my example. Okay, same thing on the screen. And I'm going to label it BAC. Now, I can call this angle BAC, or I can call it angle CAB. Okay, so I can start this way and go from bottom or from top to bottom, or I can start down here and go backwards, CAB. Okay, but I can't start at the end point or where they connect. I can't start there and name it. So I cannot call this angle ABC. Okay, or I cannot call it angle ACB. I either have to start at this arrowhead or at this arrowhead and work my way around. Okay, this point A, where those two rays meet, is what we call the vertex. And we've talked about that when we were mentioning our two-dimensional shapes. We talked a lot about what the vertex is. And some of our shapes had more than one, so they were called vertices. An angle has one vertex there. Okay, and that's where those two edges, I guess, or two rays meet. Okay, so that is an angle. We talked about a ray goes on forever in one direction, and then an angle is made of two rays. Each one goes forever in one direction, but they are connected by that common endpoint or that vertex. Okay, very good. Now, I've got a couple more words, but I think I'm going to stop for today and teach you a couple more examples and some other things tomorrow. If you need to rewatch this video, please do that. Today for guided practice, you're going to do an IXL. You can always go back to Draw Island here and play around with it and practice drawing these different vocabulary words that you're going to need to learn. Have a wonderful rest